The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Thursdays here at Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by your friends at Hurrdat Sports. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, loaded up today. Plenty of college football to talk. A reality show you got to check out if you're a Nebraska fan. I think you probably have, or maybe you've seen parts of it. But we'll give a what's the two old guys in the Muppets in the balcony.
What are their names?
Yeah.
I just think they're the two old guys.
The two old guys in the
Muppets.
Okay. Well, I'm sure they have names, right? Like Big Bird and Grover and Kermit and all that. But
Statler and Waldorf?
Statler and Waldorf. We'll go with it. We'll go with Statler and Waldorf.
That's from my quick Wikipedia search, so I believe it to be true.
Nice. That was well played. So Statler and Waldorf review of GB Rewind. We'll hear a little excerpt or two, one from Coach Ron Brown on Brooke Behringer. Maybe you've seen it on social media. And Matt Rule with his ability to fire up and be real.
And don't forget, we also have Isaac Gifford pulling the disrespected card.
Oh, really?
The Colorado game. Got that one pulled.
Okay, so we've got the disrespect portion. We'll talk Buffs, specifically Dion hating Friday night football games. Gary Barnett is with us in 1 hour. The Buffs play Stanford. I know there's a massive statewide eye roll when I say Colorado, but we'll talk some college football with Coach Barnett. In an hour, Joba Chamberlain going to join us at 5:25. We'll catch with Joba on the stream here, get his take on the baseball playoffs. Big ball game for the Braves if they want to stay alive. And Philadelphia, man, is just all sorts of rocking. We'll have a comment from Bryce Harper. And with that disrespect theme, how it helped power a couple of home runs and a couple of stare downs. So Bryce speaks at 4:40. We'll hear from him. And, yes, Brandon Vogel going to be with us. Danny Burke, as he'll get you some side plays and bets for the NFL kickoff tonight. Denver, Elijah Herbel's Denver Broncos be the Kansas City Chiefs. And then also some college football, some Major League Baseball, and maybe some NFL from Danny Burke at 5:40.
And regarding the Broncos tonight, their game against the Chiefs, in the words of Matt Rule, if we die, we die.
But can you die with winning by or losing by 9 or 10?
Hey, gets you.
Line's 10.5.
Any loss is one loss closer to Caleb Williams.
Nah, he'll stay in school.
You think Caleb Williams is actually going to stay in school? Do you actually believe that?
I think the rookie contract and signing bonus, it's not the year of Sue and Sam Bradford. I mean, they're not as lucrative. Granted, they're guaranteed millions, but dude, there's Hollywood behind him at USC.
Yeah. But here's the thing.
Mr. Spielberg, can we get a check from you for Caleb Williams? Sure.
Here's the thing. If you wait one more year, what advantage does it give you? You just have another chance at going to a bad team. You're gonna be the first overall pick, Caleb Williams. You're going to a bad team no matter what.
All bad franchises and teams are not created equal. I will say this. With Denver and Peyton, there's a Super Bowl in his history, and there's also the Drew Brees magic. And he should win with Russell. Russell's still got ball left in him.
Oh, yeah, Russell hasn't been the problem this year. That is very much, like,
he's
that's
better.
incontestable.
He's better.
He's outpacing Patrick Mahomes in terms of almost every single major stat category this year.
Except wins.
Yeah, I walked into that one, didn't I? But it's not his fault. You went from having statistically a top 3 defense in the NFL last year to having statistically a bottom 3 defense in only one offseason.
And you've ran off some guys that were decent for you, and I'm not saying Randy was decent, but he had his moments.
The bloodletting will only continue. Frank Clark just restructured his contract so you can trade him. Jerry Jeudy's unhappy. He's going to be gone by the end of the year. Most of the Broncos team is going to be gone by the end of the year. The starting 22, any one of them that has any.
You guys got to go get Jano back.
No. They don't need to get Jano back. They need to offload everybody and get draft picks back.
Saying, what was the old saying? I need 11 more guys like Jano.
Love Jano.
Yeah?
Love Jano. That was the quote right there. I think it was 22 more guys like Jano. But regardless, it doesn't matter. There is no Jano on the team this year. There's a whole bunch of clowns. And when they lose tonight, Elijah Herbel will pour himself a stiff drink in celebration because it's one loss closer to the number 1 overall pick.
This is off the top rope, and it's against my better judgment. But Matthew asked the question I'm sure we're all scratching our head to. Does Coach Rule's viral pregame speech make him the best motivational speaker since David Koresh? You've got to add best since Waco. I mean, that was hilarious, Matthew. Thank you for that anecdote. Should we hear the pregame from Matt Rule?
Before we get there, I think it'd make him the best motivational speaker since Jim Jones, because both Rule and Jones got everyone drinking the Kool-Aid, huh?
Yes. The difference is there's 85,000 plus that are still alive and well to go check out Nebraska. 489-1240, the number to get in. 800-825-5865. You can email the show, chris@halevarsity.com. Something to chew on, and Elijah and I will have our thoughts on this, but bye-week bucket list. And we've done the bucket list topic before, but it's a bye week. So I ask this, what game would you go see in a college football season, rivalry or just a juicy matchup? Or what team would you want to go check out? And we'll get there. We'll talk with Brandon Vogel here in about 10 minutes, get his thoughts. He's pretty worldly with college football venues. I have been, and this goes all the way back to, we had Jim Walden on this week. Jim Walden's upset win over Nebraska in '92 at Iowa State. Well, that same weekend, I had my cousin Nader. He went to KU. And cousin Nader lived at the Sigma Chi house, and we had a hell of a good time. I was in 8th grade. But that weekend, you had a nationally ranked Kansas football team, because KU was a top 20 team that year, and you had nationally ranked Colorado. So instead of being glued to the radio as an 8th grader listening to Nebraska fall to Iowa State, I went down to Lawrence and spent the weekend down there and watched KU Colorado. And it was like a top 10 versus top 15 matchup. I think Colorado won. But that's kind of my only breather outside of Nebraska coverage or attending as a kid, really ever. And it was Kansas and Colorado, but it was pretty good. If I had to pick, I would, and it's not just recency bias, I've always wanted to go see Oklahoma, Texas. I think that would have been incredible this year, but a lot of years, just the scene, the atmosphere, the fair. I'm not a big fair guy, but I think it would be pretty cool down in Texas. I think this weekend would be awesome. USC at Notre Dame. I mean, those are the two I circle. Give me SC, Notre Dame in South Bend, or give me the showdown at the Red River. Give me Oklahoma, Texas. Those are the two. And typically you don't have a bye week this soon for Nebraska. So it hasn't ever worked out. I've had other friends go to Bama, go to Georgia. They've gone to the Iron Bowl. They've been to a game at LSU. A couple buddies went down to Tallahassee for some crazy reason. I think Clemson would be fun.
See, I got two. There's two, both of which are kind of unfeasible because of Nebraska's schedule. You'd have to make a really, really quick trip following Nebraska's Black Friday game against Iowa or whoever it would have been through the years.
Michigan, Ohio State would be cool.
Michigan, Ohio State, specifically in the Big House. That is one I want to check out. The other one, same weekend, is the Iron Bowl, Alabama and Auburn. That sounds fantastic. Both of those, logistically, with Nebraska's schedule, make things difficult. But there is one that is usually earlier in the year, and that is the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, Florida and Georgia.
Oh, good call.
It's a little under the radar, but the fans all have a good time outside the game. There's a reason it's called the world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
Sure.
It's a party, and Georgia has been dominating it in recent years, but traditionally it's pretty competitive between Florida and Georgia. That one sounds like an awesome one to check out.
And you're willingly going to go to Jacksonville.
Yeah, it's nice weather. Nice weather down in Jacksonville.
Okay. I think my brother went down to the Georgia-Nebraska. Actually, it was the Clemson-Nebraska bowl game.
The Gator Bowl years ago.
Yeah.
That was probably 2007?
It was 8.
Yeah.
2008. It is years ago now that you think about it.
I remember that one because it had just snowed the day before in Lincoln. Mm-hmm. So it's like all snowy outside, and then you go down to beautiful Jacksonville to watch the bowl game.
I think he even took his golf clubs with him.
Sunny, 70 degrees. Actually, it was sunny and 70 for that one because it was the Georgia-Nebraska game that was rain-soaked. It was Nebraska-Clemson that was beautiful, sunny, mid-70s down in Florida while it's a winter wonderland in Lincoln.
Gotta get to a bowl game. Got to get to Arizona this December.
Give me Detroit.
Yep. Scott Kelly, he chimes in. Chris, thanks. I just had a seizure after you mentioned the Iowa State game from '92. I apologize about that, Scott, but that's my one breather away from Nebraska football, really, ever, when it comes to seeing. I think something out on the West Coast would be great.
I love Bedlam. I love Oklahoma State. That would be a lot of fun. But again, you have the Black Friday weekend difficulties there. There's so many good rivalry games that weekend in college football.
We should line up a trip to the Big House for Ohio State, Michigan.
That's a tough pull.
We got a guy we can call.
We'd have to get the late night Black Friday flight out probably.
Yeah, because they do kick off
at usually 11.
Mm-hmm. And that'd be tough. That'd be rough. We could think about it. So we'll take some of your thoughts, 489-1240. Eric says when Bo announced that Nebraska was back, that might have been after the Holiday Bowl a year later. Any game in the Rose Bowl's on my bucket list. Ty chimes in. You'll get a chance, Ty, because Nebraska will be playing UCLA.
Well, my a good friend of mine, Nate, I worked with him back in my days at a local rehabilitation hospital back in the kitchen. Him and his dad went and checked out the Rose Bowl game between Oklahoma and Georgia, Kirby Smart's second year. He was sitting fifth row behind the end zone where the game finished. So they had overtime going directly at him.
That was a great game. That was a score fest.
Yeah, it was 45-42, I think, was the final score. And he was sitting in the end zone whenever Georgia won the game right at the end. So a fantastic game there. He had to go check out. That was his one experience in the Rose Bowl, and I said, never go back. Yeah, Nick Chubb, Baker Mayfield. Beautiful, beautiful game of football, and then Georgia would go on to lose to Alabama in overtime about 2 weeks later.
Tua game?
The Tua game, yeah. That was just a fantastic college football playoff all around, actually, and he got to go watch that Rose Bowl from the fifth row, and I told him, never go back. You'll never be able to catch a Rose Bowl or game in the Rose Bowl that's that good ever again.
The word is the Rose Bowl's, as old as it is 1,000 times better than the Coliseum. So there's that for future reference, because there'll be a lot of Nebraska fans with this new Big Ten going back out to Seattle, going back out to Oregon, going to USC, going to UCLA for some of those road trips. Anonymous chimes in, if Nebraska stretches their current win streak from 1 to 25, at that point they would be 500 for their last 104 games. Fair enough.
I would call it a fun fact. That's not a very fun fact.
It's not fun, but it's better than it's better than a Koresh mention, right?
Or Jim Jones.
Or Jim Jones. So there we go. Emails we'll get to chris@hailvarsity.com. Let's hear. Do we have time? Let's hear from Matt Rule. The GB Rewind. This dropped last night at 7:30.
Let's lock in on this moment right now. Let's all just be here for a second, all right? I'm dead serious. Take a minute. Let's just be everybody be right here. Okay? You guys worked your ass off to be right here. So let me tell you what's going to happen today. Okay, let me tell you what's going to happen today. We're putting away childish things. Okay, we're putting away fear because there's no reason for us to be afraid. Okay, we're putting away expectation. We are going to go out there today and we are going to play the way we play. It's about our football. It's about the things you freaking guys do. I don't want anybody on that field hoping or waiting. I want guys out there demanding it from themselves and believing in the guys next to them, believing in what they do. I want to see your personalities come out tonight. As long as you just win one rep at a time. I just want you one rep at a time. I don't want you getting pulled out. I don't want you thinking about the score. I don't want you thinking about else, man. Just like if we played these guys at practice. How would you guys be? You go after them. And that's what's happening tonight. I believe in you guys. That was clear. The coaches believe in you guys. You guys believe in each other, believe in yourselves, believe in the process, one snap at a time. RDV, every snap, what's next? Play like brothers. Play like brothers. Pick each other up. Help each other out tonight, man. That's why we've gone through what we've gone through. The camp you went through, the first 2 weeks, but there ain't no victims here. If we die, we die. If we die, we die. But go steal home base like Ron said. Go do it tonight. Go make your place. Go be you. Just be brotherhood. Let's go, man.
Pretty impressive. Now, that's reality TV. There's cameras, there's HD, there's footage, there's a show that's dropping in season just like the training camp season. It's a great look behind the curtain. But man, the guy can talk, and he knows what buttons to push, and he's got guys bought in through their actions.
Mm-hmm. Show us the pregame speech before Michigan now.
Well, I want to see the post-game speech for Michigan.
Very true.
Very, very true. Brandon Vogel's with us. Great to have you in. It's Hail Varsity, powered by Hurrdat Sports.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Hail Varsity Radio with you on a Thursday. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We welcome in Brandon Vogel from the Counter Read. CounterRead.com is where you can log on, subscribe, find out all you want to know with Nebraska and college football and beyond. Brandon Vogel, Aaron Sorensen at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter. Vogue's joining us via video conference from his football den. I was going to say office. We're going to call it a den now because it looks like there's more books behind you, and it looks even more scholarly. I wish I had a room in my house that looked awesome. I don't. The German Shepherd prevents that, Vogues. But good to spend time with you. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. The books do tend to stack up, though. In your case, it might be a German Shepherd. In my case, it might be like kids. I don't know how much longer I'm going to have. I don't know how much longer I'm going to have this much space.
I thought you were talking about the kids were leaving.
No, they're not.
You had a wrong pause there.
They might just take over this space.
They're going to invade. I love it. Vogue's a lot to get to, but I want to start off with the story newsletter that was out, just to tease it a little bit, that Aaron Sorensen had today. She had a one-on-one with Trev. Some pretty cool nuggets in there.
Yeah, there were. So Trev Alberts has been good enough to sit down with us a couple of times now and kind of talk through a lot of things. And in this case, we asked our subscribers to send us their questions that they had for Trev Alberts. Of course, there was a lot of stadium talk. One of the more interesting ones, though, however, was about kind of football rebuilds. And, I think if we're being realistic about that, we know that Nebraska is in one. We saw them play Colorado about a month ago at this point. And we know that Colorado was in one and took a very different approach. So Alberts had some really interesting comments, I thought, on that about, yeah, you can flip these things pretty quickly. Something I wrote earlier in the week was just kind of putting Rule in context of the other year one Power 5 coaching hires. And the two that I think that you can't argue are successful at this moment are Colorado and Louisville. They were two of, I think, the top 6 or 7 in terms of the number of transfers they took in. Now, Arizona State, which there's a lot of context, I think, to the Sun Devils, also took in a ton of transfers, has dealt with a ton of injuries, took a bowl ban kind of voluntarily before the season started. So it's not like, yeah, just flip your roster and you'll be good. But it's interesting. This is all evolving. This is kind of a new era for college football. And Nebraska has chosen not to go that route. So Trev Alberts talked a little bit about that.
really good answer to the question, and there's different ways to do it. And what is long-term is a great question. And maybe Prime is long-term with this. Who knows? We'll see what long-term means for him in Boulder. Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt, Brandon Vogel with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. Vogue's outlook for the second 6 for Nebraska as they head into the bye week. They're going to get recharged and reset as you look into this next wave of games. Are you looking at another 3-3 split? Do you think Nebraska could hedge maybe even above 500, or do they stub their toe? How's your mood as we move through the bye week?
Yeah, I mean, Nebraska, in my opinion, hasn't shown enough to the point where, and this has been the case for a long time with Nebraska, where you're just like, oh yeah, you're favored by 7 in this game. You'll obviously win that. That said, I think they're getting closer to that point. So you look at the back half of this schedule, and it kind of neatly divides into 3. So you've got Northwestern, which by most power ratings, et cetera, or just watching the games, you're like, Nebraska's better than Northwestern. They'll be a favorite next week at home against Northwestern. They'll probably be a slight favorite against Purdue, which, I think Purdue and Nebraska at this moment are pretty close to about equal. And then Michigan State, who knows? It's a weird situation. It's an interim coach situation. You got to go on the road, but Michigan State isn't what we thought it was in the preseason. After that, you've got Maryland, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Feel like you match up stylistically okay with Iowa. Maryland's going to be, I think, tough. We'll see where the Terps go. And then Wisconsin's maybe the most mysterious team to me still left in the Big Ten. And we'll find out a little bit about the Badgers when they face Iowa this week. They get to host them at home as a 10-point favorite. But there's no game left on that schedule for Nebraska where I was like, oh, they're not going to win that. Michigan was probably that, even though I thought Nebraska had a chance to maybe cover a 17-point spread. They probably weren't going to win it. That's done. There's none of that left. So Nebraska is in a fortunate position of being able to write the rest of its season. I really do think that.
And Brandon, if Nebraska does write the rest of its season, is a Big Ten West title out of the question? And I hate to go there, but halfway through the season, you look at all the games, I think you could see Nebraska getting a win. Maybe winnable is not the game to use because that gets contentious whenever you call everything winnable games. But as Matt Rule kind of said, there's not a game on the schedule we can't win, but there's also not a team left on the schedule that can't beat us. And if you run the table in those remaining 6 games, I mean, is that too crazy?
Life is all about 9-3, I guess.
Hey, I watched one pregame speech from Matt Rule, and I see 6 wins now.
I mean, it's not out of the question. I wouldn't say it's probable, but I'm not sure running the table is what you have to do to win the Big Ten West. I mean, honestly, with Wisconsin undefeated, Iowa with 1 loss in conference play, if you're a Husker fan who doesn't know what to do on Saturday, and you're like, maybe I'll go to the pumpkin patch or whatever, totally get it. I'll probably do that too. Watch that Iowa-Wisconsin game. I think it's going to be the most telling one. And there's not a lot of great games in the Big Ten this week, to be honest. Seeing where those two teams kind of fall in and what happens between the two of them, and they're the last 2 opponents on Nebraska's schedule. A lot of it I think comes down to what Nebraska does against those two. If we look at them as favorites twice, so Northwestern, Purdue, Michigan State, a little bit up in the air. Michigan State will probably be favored because they're still at home. You've just got to steal a win or 2 for us to be in November, going to Wisconsin and talking about, oh, I think Nebraska, if they win this game, they've got a shot. They're not out of the race. So it's it's not crazy to think along those lines, I guess is my ultimate point. And we'll see what Nebraska does from here. I mean, we know what I don't know if we know, but we have a good idea what they are at this point. Pretty good defensively, which always gives you a chance in the Big Ten. Pretty limited offensively, which for the past decade plus hasn't hurt Iowa. So can you be Iowa a little bit over the remaining 6 weeks?
You can be limited and borderline bad offensively and still win the West. I mean, Wisconsin for years has had a really good run game and an offensive line, and it works to the tune of 8, 9, 10. I'm not dogging them. Yep. But once you get up against Michigan, Ohio State, I mean, you're annihilated, especially in Indy. Brandon Vogel's with us, counterread.com, at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter. Vogues, I want you to chime in on this bye-week bucket list. The only other college football game I've been to that doesn't involve Nebraska was back in '92. It was Colorado-Kansas, a matchup of two top 25 teams. Remember it well. Good ball game. The Buffs won. Your thought? You've experienced some non-Nebraska college football Saturdays. What game / rivalry would you choose to see, or what team / venue would you want to go see? Not necessarily a matchup, but a team.
Yeah, I mean, I think at number one on my list, and I've never been there. I didn't even get to watch it last Saturday because I was driving back from Illinois. Just got to listen to it, but listening to it somehow drove it home of like, I need to get to the Texas State Fair for Oklahoma, Texas. I mean, there's just so much around that game. And honestly, like this was another one where the game was great. And I feel like because it happens relatively early, it doesn't get the credit that, say, Ohio State, Michigan, or Auburn, Alabama, which happen, at the end of the season get. But if you gave me the choice between those three, Ohio State, Michigan, Auburn, Alabama, or Texas, Oklahoma, I'm going to Texas, Oklahoma. There's so much to that one. I like to get out to college football games, rivalry or not, and there's so much good out there. Like if you're somebody who, is in a position where you're like, Nebraska doesn't play this week, I'm going to go watch a college football game. Where am I going to go? Like to that person who went to a Colorado-Kansas game, like maybe doesn't care about either team. Great idea. App State is one of the best atmospheres I've been to. Wyoming is one of the best atmospheres I've been to. So all of those things, like it's a huge sport, which is the beauty of it. And just getting out there and getting to experience things, like if you love the sport itself, maybe you love Nebraska first and foremost, it's good. Like it changes your perspective just to get out and see like what else is out there.
Brayden, quickly before we get you out of here, about a minute left. Less rivalry game, more rivalry trophy. Do you have a favorite rivalry trophy that you want to see get awarded in college football?
I mean, there's a lot of good ones in the Big Ten. The keg of nails always stands out. Michigan and Minnesota played in a not very good game. If you're a Minnesota fan, for the little brown jug. I like those things that were kind of organic, not workshopped, not put together by a marketing team, which unfortunately includes most of Nebraska's rivalry trophies in the Big Ten era. But it's just like, yeah, back in 1904, some student manager bought this jug, and that's what we play for now. That's the good stuff. So the Big Ten probably does lead the way here, but give me something ugly and old.
I love it. Subscribe, counterread.com. Vokes, thanks for the time, bud.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks so much to Brandon Vogel for joining us, Counter Read. Coming up here, Gary Barnett, his take on Coach Prime, hating on Friday night kickoffs at 8:20 Mountain Time. What's he think of the weekend matchup? Best environment Barney's been to. He did national radio for quite a while. We're getting into bye-week bucket list. What team or game would you see if you could? Tim chimes in. Tim, thanks for listening. And this is in reference to our Matt Rule clip from the GB Rewind, the reality show that dropped last night. It's in-season footage behind the scenes of Nebraska football, a fiery speech by Matt Rule. You've probably seen it on social media, but it was really cool. And the highlight of it is if we die, we die. And it's the look at his eyes as he's getting his team fired up, being real with them, was pretty impressive. Really like the beginning of that, Elijah, where it's right after the Colorado game. And, it's not a great thing. But he's like, we'll get better. We'll fix it. I ask you to trust me. Again, as a partnership where they work together versus being something you're not one moment. You're loving them up or talking them up or getting them to sign on signing day. And then you're a completely different person when it gets a little funky. And I think he's the same guy whether the HD cameras are rolling or not. And I really appreciate that about Coach Rule. Tim responded to Rule's speech. Hearing that gave me flashbacks to boot camp. Phew. Full Metal Jacket, Tim, with boot camp. I got to hear stories sometime from you. Brandon chimes in when it comes to Wisconsin has Ohio State. If Nebraska wins against them, there's the tiebreaker. Brandon is like-minded with Elijah talking Big Ten West Championship. Can I put that on you?
I mean, it's there for the taking.
Easy.
It's
yes.
there. I think Nebraska legitimately, despite the fact that you have 2 losses in the conference, you still hold your fate in your own hands.
I don't know. Listen, Wisconsin still has to jack with Minnesota. I know Minnesota's not good, but I don't see Minnesota getting swept by Iowa and Wisconsin. I just don't. They just don't do that. This will be the year they do it. But Iowa's already gotten crushed by Penn State. They got to go to Madison. They still got to play Nebraska. And I forget the other crossover for Iowa. I don't have their schedule pulled up. But
it's Penn State, isn't it?
They already got beat by Penn State.
You are correct.
Penn State, Ohio State, and who? Is it Rutgers? Is it Maryland?
There's no Ohio State for Iowa this year.
Okay, they already played Michigan State, didn't they?
They played Michigan State and beat them. They lost to Penn State. Their remaining schedules: Wisconsin, Minnesota, Northwestern, Rutgers, Illinois, and Nebraska.
Rutgers is better. So I'm saying that who's the tallest short kid is what I'm getting at here.
That's the best.
For the Big Ten West. Our friend Scott Dochterman of The Athletic, it's hilarious. He said if I could paint the Big Ten West as a kid, it would be the junior high kid with red hair, freckles, and wearing husky jeans. The ugly fat kid in the Big Ten West. That's a fair take on just what the division's been. A handful of wow wins against the East and nothing else to write home about. All right, you are all about these rivalry trophies.
Yes.
And you're going to make me guess? Is that what we're doing?
Well, we have one that is up for grabs this weekend. This trophy. And
the Paul Bunyan axe?
It is not.
Okay.
It is the jeweled shillelagh.
Oh, that's USC Notre Dame.
This weekend, yes. Yeah. So that's one. I didn't know if you'd get that one or not.
Well, you went shillelagh.
Well, what is a shillelagh? Answer me that.
It's something from Ireland.
It's an Irish walking stick.
Okay.
So the jeweled shillelagh.
Carson would call it a pimp cane, but okay.
That's up for grabs this weekend. That's a good one. Do you know
Irish pimp cane?
Do you know which 2 teams play for the Keg of Nails?
We'll say somebody from the MAC.
A former Big East team.
There's a lot of those.
I know.
No clue.
Cincinnati and Louisville play for the Keg of Nails. That's a good one that I quite enjoy. I'm trying to stay away from the Big Ten ones because those have all gotten pretty famous. So let's go next Oh, here's a really, really good one. The Fremont Cannon. This is a full-size cannon.
It's got to be somewhere that once seceded from the Union. No?
It was introduced by Bill Ireland, a former coach of one of these teams. Since 1970, they've given away the Fremont Cannon.
Does the Sentinel still play football?
The Sentinel?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I'm saying the college. The military school in South Carolina.
No. The Citadel?
Oh, whoops.
The Citadel.
I screwed that up horribly.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, what are you talking about?
Forgive me, military members. Don't have any idea.
The Fremont Cannon is Nevada and UNLV. A full-size cannon, which I think is really, really fun.
Firearms in Nevada.
Okay, how about the Frank Leahy Memorial Bowl?
Thought Leahy was a Notre Dame guy.
He is.
Okay. Is it Notre Dame USC?
It's not Notre Dame USC. That's the bejeweled.
No, I know, but maybe there's two trophies. I don't know.
This is Boston College and Notre Dame, dubbed the Holy War. They play for the Frank Leahy Memorial Bowl. I got one or two more of these if you're willing to have them.
Sure.
Let's see. The Old Brass Spittoon?
That is Purdue in Minnesota?
No. It's Indiana and Michigan State.
Sure.
And the last one we'll get to you. Let's see.
Quickly, because people are wondering in traffic.
Okay, how about the Bronze Stock? This is a team that Nebraska has already played this year, plays for this one. It is a stalk of corn that has been bronzed and put on a trophy.
Let's go with Northern Illinois.
Yes. Against a MAC foe.
Ohio?
Ball State.
Indiana.
Ball State in Northern Illinois play for the Bronze Stock every single year. That's a good one.
It. Brennan's offended. He says he wore Husky jeans. Me too, brother. It happened. And we just had to deal with it in junior high. Husky. Code for larger.
Big boned.
Yes. Thick. Reminder about your friends at Dyer Law Workers' Comp. Are you confused about your options with workers' compensation? Put your trust in the team at Dyer Law. Help ensure that your rights are protected and to get a settlement you deserve. Call Dyer Law today at 402-393-7529. DyerLaw.com. DyerLaw.com. Chat with a trusted professional about your workers' compensation claim. That's Dyer.law, 402-393-7529. Coming up, we'll talk rivalry. We'll talk bucket list during the bye week. Some of the best venues in college football. I've laid mine out, Elijah. You are all about where?
I mean, I
are you going to jump on the bandwagon with us with Oklahoma, Texas?
I do want to see the Big House, specifically for Ohio State.
I think Army Navy'd be awesome.
Ooh, that is.
Can we do that?
That one's after Nebraska season ends too.
It might. Oh, there we go. And it might not be an 11 a.m. turnaround. We'll wind down hour one on the way with Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, next hour, college football thoughts. Gary Barnett, Major League Baseball postseason, Joba Chamberlain, Vegas gambling, Danny Burke, Burke's Best Bets. Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. We're powered by Hurrdat Sports. As we have gone through some more comments, Eat Beef chimes in and says, word on the street, if South Dakota gets it done, you've got game day heading to Vermilion for the Yotes versus the Jacks. That'd be incredible. Ty said he went to the Bussin' Bowl this year. Since we're talking bucket list and bye week, the Bussin' Bowl was a dud.
But that's the kind of trophy that I think Nebraska should play for. The organic, like the $5 bits of broken chair trophy.
Those are good folks.
It's fallen out of favor a little bit, it feels like, among the universities that used to be like half officially sponsored, and now it's kind of just a fan thing. Mm-hmm. Make that an officially sponsored thing again. Make the Bussin' Bowl an officially sponsored thing again. I hate these corporate sponsored trophies that Nebraska plays for at the end of the year. Like, like Nebraska and Iowa, it's sponsored Heroes Trophy, and it's for a good cause, but there's something special.
It's a great cause.
Great, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I don't want to be taken out of context.
No, you like where the heart is,
yes.
and where the financial contributions go. It's for military.
Yeah, I just don't like the execution, because you look across the grander landscape of college football, and all these trophies have a meaning. They have a backstory behind them, as opposed to just. And I know it's hard to bemoan a trophy that benefits military veterans like it does, but it doesn't have the same history and just meaning to it that a lot of other trophies are in college football.
Nebraska, Iowa was totally forced, but it's worked out. It's worked out okay. I mean, Nebraska would always play them tough and win in a hard-fought ball game, and then Nebraska didn't win for 1,000 years, and then you stunned a team in Iowa a year ago and kept them from going to back-to-back Big Ten title games. And it was a great send-off for a lot of kids who had a lot of hell here with expectations meeting results. At least they got to go out with a win over Iowa. Iowa's going to come here. They may not be in the thick of the Big Ten West because they could technically be eliminated if Wisconsin's not challenged. Okay, Wisconsin still's got to deal with Ohio State. They beat Rutgers, and I don't think they venture out of Camp Randall that often, aside from Columbus. So, what's your loss number look like in the West? I mean, you're going to have a pillow fight for 2nd through 7th, and you're going to have Wisconsin there, or the Wisconsin-Iowa winner. But Iowa's a far bigger mess on offense than Wisconsin. So, who's to say that if Iowa does sneak out of Wisconsin with a win, that they don't stub their toe elsewhere? At least a couple times.
Well, and just back to the Nebraska-Iowa game.
And nothing's certain for Nebraska these next 6.
You think there'd be more to play for if they were playing for, like, the golden overalls? I'm trying to think of something that Nebraska and Iowa has in common, because you can't really go ear of corn, because that is kind of more Nebraska than Iowa, despite the fact you always see it online. Like, Iowa has bad corn, Nebraska has
I'm going to say
corn.
something to get me canceled here, but I think Iowa produces more corn than Nebraska.
They do.
Okay.
So maybe the golden ear of corn would be something to play for between
just
Nebraska
corn on the
and Iowa.
cob.
That's what I'm
something
saying.
Like that. That'd be fine. We always wanted, when we talked to Coach Alvarez, I mean, it should have been a giant pitcher of beer for Nebraska, Wisconsin.
That'd be great.
It should have been just a giant pitcher of Miller Lite.
Busch Light.
Busch or Miller Lite.
Busch
whatever
is
works.
brewed with Midwestern corn. Have you seen their advertising? Corn from America's heartland.
That's right. Ty says the Golden Casey's Trophy. There's your new sponsor and title. Coach Barnett's on the way. Hour 2 coming up with Hail Varsity.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back with you, it's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're powered by Hurrdat Sports. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We'll get into some Major League Baseball. Joba Chamberlain going to join us. Look at the MLB postseason as things are shaping up, and then we'll head to Vegas. Danny Burke. We say hi to head football coach for a long time at Colorado and Northwestern, College Football Hall of Famer Gary Barnett with us, and Coach jumping in with us before the Friday night affair with Stanford and Colorado. Coach, how's the week been? Thanks for a few minutes.
It's been good. It's going to be about 35 degrees tomorrow night, and so we've had great weather up until all of a sudden we're going to get one day of it, and then we break back clear. But it's going to be nice and cold tomorrow night for the Stanford Cardinal and Buffaloes.
Well, you'll where you're seated, I'm sure the windows are open, but you stay warm, don't you, when you're calling the game? Do you have a little heater?
Well, let me tell you, Mark Johnson's a North Dakotan, and so he thinks life's supposed to be. When he gets over 60, he can't take it anymore. So he leaves every window open. I mean, he's not dressed in a coat. I'm up there shivering to death, but They've taken care of me with a foot warmer, I think, or a heater down below, so I'll be all right. I'll figure it out. Unfortunately, we're 2 hours outside before that.
No,
so
man.
That's the problem.
So your pregame is outdoors, huh?
Yeah, we do 2 hours outside. So.
Jeez.
So Schmidt, it's almost the opposite of you and Carol in the mornings over here on KFOR, where Carol's got her space heater on and you're sweating away.
Oh, brother, it's South America in there. It's 400 degrees every day, all day. But you know what? It's keeping me less blubbery. Coach, so we were talking, since it's the bye week, and you know, Nebraska played Friday night, and they found a way to hang on against Illinois, some good and some ugly, but you'll take the win, and we'll get there in a minute. I wanted to ask you, because you've seen a lot of great ball games, if you could pick just, if you had to pick, let me rephrase that, if you had to pick just one rivalry game or team that you're not familiar with, that's either Missouri, Northwestern, or Colorado, to go to, where would it be? This bucket list bye week is what we're talking about, and I've never gotten down to the Red River Rivalry, and I would have loved to have gone last Saturday.
You know, I've been really lucky that I've seen them all except Army-Navy.
Okay.
I've been to the Iron Bowl. I've been to the Red River Rivalry. I've been to the Tennessee-Florida game. I've been to Arizona State, Washington State, Oregon State, Ohio State, Michigan, Missouri, Kansas, of course. But the one I haven't been to is Army-Navy that I would like to go.
That's pretty awesome. That's one that came up with me. I've always wanted to see USC at Notre Dame. I know that's this weekend. Might as well just hop on a plane, Elijah. Once just do it. The cocktail party sounds good. Jackson, down in Jacksonville. You've covered that, right? Georgia, Florida?
Yes, yep. Done that one. And I'll tell you another great one is the backyard brawl between West Virginia and Pitt. That's really good.
Okay.
So it's I've done a whiteout at Penn State, which was one of the most fun things to do. So, yeah, it's lucky, but no Army-Navy yet.
Okay.
Among the games you have seen, Coach, which do you think tops the list of those games? If you're recommending to us, which one should we put at the top of our bucket list?
Probably Texas, Oklahoma, just because of where it is and the way they divide the stadium up. It's a neutral site, sort of, and that's, to me, it's just amazing to sit there and see half the stadium in red and half the stadium in orange. I think that one's fantastic. So.
Coach, you got to go back to last weekend. Thoughts on Nebraska's win? Thoughts on the Buffs' walk-off win?
Well, they were both ugly wins, in my opinion. The Nebraska game, 3 turnovers, 10 penalties. You keep the ball 37 minutes, 312 yards total offense. I mean, that was just, it was just ugly. It's marred by the 10 penalties and the 3 turnovers. That's really what it is. Mm-hmm. But and we were the same way at Arizona State. We were so lucky to win that football game. And Shador just throws one down the field, and they blew coverage, and we had a kid catch it, and we kicked a field goal to end the game, and it was it wasn't a walk off, but pretty close. And it was the same way for us. We got sacked. That kid's been sacked 30 times this year. Couldn't run the football. Every game is going to be like that for us, though, Chris. I mean, we got Stanford this week after a bye. And I'll guarantee you this is a trap game if I've ever seen one. So it's just, we have some skilled players on both back end and receiver part, and a quarterback that's playing his heart out. And, we find a way to win 4 games already and a chance to win 5. And we'll see. But ours was just as ugly as yours, I can guarantee you.
Coach Rule has been pretty transparent with his kids, and he's pretty much been on the money when he's talked to the media with just how things are and expectations are. And I sent you that clip of him before the Northern Illinois game, and he's really trying to get guys to cut it loose. And right now he's trying to work on kind of a wounded roster with so many guys that have gone down. Nebraska's limited as a passing team anyway with who they're playing at quarterback, and I really like Harburg's grit, but there's just some limitations, and he's not played a lot of football. What do you do where, when you look at Nebraska's situation, Coach, where they've got some limited options to throw the football, they've got a limited passer, and they're not a great under center run team with the rest of the schedule they've got? I mean, there's some winnable games, but Rule's right. He said there's also a lot of losable games.
Well, I think it's a fine line between acknowledging exactly who you are and accepting who you really are. And as a coach, you got to do both, but you got to balance it, and you got to make them think they're better than they are, but you got to let them know where they are so they can get better and be where they think they should be. And so it's a fine line, but the most important thing in this whole thing, I believe, comes down to we're in this thing together. Mm-hmm. You know, we're going to acknowledge who we are. We're going to dream about who we want to be, and we're going to find a way to take the steps to get to where what we dream about ourselves. And I mean, you just got to be gritty. You got to acknowledge it. We are a workman type team. We're not going to be showy. We're just going to find a way to win. That's who we want to be. And that in itself is the greatest lesson you can learn in athletics, is that you're just going to be gritty and you're going to find a way to win. And it doesn't have to be pretty. So, I mean, and there's fun in that. Okay, there's at the end of the year, if you accomplish that, it is the most fun year you have in coaching, because a coach takes you where you can't take yourself. That's the definition of coaching. And the player's role is to say, coach me, take me where I can't take myself. And if you agree on those two things, then you're going to have fun, you're going to work, you're going to cry together, you're going to win together. But that's what it's all about right there.
It's Coach Gary Barnett with us here on Hail Varsity Radio, talking Matt Rule, Nebraska. And Coach, just last night, University of Nebraska released a video rewinding both the Northern Illinois and the Louisiana Tech wins. And in it, you got to see some pregame speeches from Matt Rule. Pretty moving, those speeches, saying we need to be prepared to die on that field, essentially. I'm paraphrasing for Coach Rule there. And I want to get your thoughts on the pregame speech, because Matt Rule had a moving one, but there's another coaching legend out there, Bud Grant. He played in the NBA for the Lakers, and he said during that time he never liked the pregame speech, so whenever he became a head coach, he used them very infrequently, because he said, those are the guys risk it all. I'm just standing on the sideline. What are they going to hear from me that's going to really resound with them before a game? They know what they need to do. What was your take on the pregame speech? Was it important? Was it a side note before the game? How did you approach that moment? Well,
there were two moments that were really important to me. Thursday night, after practice, I would meet with the team, and I learned this from Coach McCartney. And I'd set the table right there that Thursday night, and I would. It was funny. I used to pull everybody that touched our players. We would meet on Thursday morning, and I would ask each one of them what we need to do to win this game, and they all would have such great answers. And at the end of that meeting, it was about an hour, and there were guys that were better than other guys, and I'd always save them for last. And I swear, when we left that meeting, I knew whoever we were going to play, we were going to beat them, or we were going to play our butts off. And it was so confidence building for our staff. And so one time, I took that meeting and I replicated it in front of all the players, because players needed to hear that coaches thought that way about them, and that other people thought that way about them and believed in them so much. And it was really one of my greatest moves. And it wasn't meant to be a move. It was just something that I felt like we needed to do, and it was stinking awesome. It was awesome. And I really wished I could do it after every Thursday meeting. But I was the big pregame speech guy. I worked on it. I worked on the Thursday night thing, and I worked on pregame. And, of course, after what happened in that Thursday night meeting, it told me what to say on Saturday for the game. So, no, it was important to me because that's the way I like to coach, and that's the way I like to play. So it just depends. It's sort of like Bud Grant said he didn't like it, and he didn't want to play that way. I did like it, and I did want to play that way. And so that I was a big pregame guy and a big Thursday night guy.
That's pretty awesome to hear. Gary Barnett's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, thoughts on Coach Prime's take on Friday night football, late Friday night football?
I'm totally in agreement. I would feel that way as a coach. I feel that way as a broadcaster. I feel that way as a fan. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. We're going to start this game at 8:20, and nobody cares when I get home, but I'm going to get home at 2:10 in the morning. You lose fan base. Your older fans, loyal fans, they can't do it. If you have a close game like we had against CSU, double overtime, with 9 penalties in the first quarter lasted 57 minutes. Really, why are we doing that? And I agree with him totally, and I just hope his kids don't feel that way because it's a trap game if he does.
Well, meanwhile, the Big Ten's adding even more Friday night games beginning in 2024.
Yeah, let's just leave that one be.
Well, I don't mind Friday night games that start at 5:30, or 5. I don't mind that. I really don't. It's the 8:15 deals. Give me a break.
Coach, we'll hit some rapid fire here. Oregon, Washington, Huskies -3.
Hey, let me tell you, Chris, this is the hardest week to pick I've seen in a long time. Huskies by 3. I'm taking the Huskies. I just think they're a better team.
You got Notre Dame, USC, Irish stung by Louisville, Irish -3.
Caleb Williams is the best football player I've seen in years, and even though USC's defense is substandard, I just won't bet against Caleb Williams. I'm going with USC.
Future Denver Bronco.
That's what Elijah's hoping.
We're working on it, aren't we?
-3.
We're on tonight. You can see our effort.
-3, North Carolina. Does Miami get back, Coach?
Oh, no. North Carolina wins.
Go ahead.
By the way, if you haven't coached, you haven't done what Mario Cristobal did. So we've all done it. Believe me, every one of us, including me.
Oh,
no. Everybody's ragging on him pretty hard. Give him a break.
Missouri, do they bounce back? They had it, and then they did, and LSU came back. Now they're at Kentucky.
This can be a great game. I just looked at the numbers, and I think Missouri is going to win this game. I really do. And somebody else, I think, on ESPN picked them as the upset, too. And I think Missouri's going to win this game, but this could be a really heck of a football game.
Coach, last thought, Iowa at Wisconsin, Whiskey -9.5.
Boy, I don't know. I think I would take Iowa in the points.
Okay.
And but I don't know if they're going to win the game. But I think I'd take 9. 9 points is more than they normally score. So they hold everybody close. So if you give them 9, if you spot them 9, they're liable to beat you.
Both of them.
I'm going to go with Iowa with points, but Wisconsin will win the game.
Coach Gary Barnett. Coach, you stay warm late tomorrow night. All right.
All right, Chris.
Take care. Appreciate you.
All right. Talk to you later.
There he is, Coach Gary Barnett with us. Good to spend time with him. We love doing rapid fire with college football picks and good thoughts on Nebraska. We'll hit some Major League Baseball. Great postseason. A lot of drama, some new names. And Husker and Major League Baseball great Joba Chamberlain next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Stuff from Gary Barnett. Be sure to get the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Let's hit some Major League Baseball. Husker standout World Series champ and soon-to-be podcaster for with us at Hurrdat. We welcome in Joba Chamberlain. Joba, good to see you, man. You're hunkered down. You're ready for your Braves tonight against Philly. So give me the star rating on Bryce's stare down out of 5. Would you give it a 5 out of 5?
I mean, if I could give it higher, I would give. I mean, the weird part about that was, like, I guess from everything that I've read, that it was said in the locker room. But, like, you just have to understand in that situation is, like, we've all been there. If you haven't said you haven't talked crap about, something or whatever. But, I mean, and if you look at it as a baseball play, Bryce did the right thing. He just ran a little too far past second. But he's tying that game unless Michael Harris makes an unbelievable catch. And then what goes underrated, too, I think, if you watch the whole play develop, Michael Harris missed 2 people, and Austin Riley made an absolute gross pick and throw to Olsen. Like, so from top to bottom, it's the first ever 8-5-3 double play in postseason history. That's not real common. So, no, I mean, it's, you know what? That's what big-time players do. You don't give them chalkboard material at any point. You're already playing in a hostile environment anyways at Philly. I mean, we literally got off, when we were playing them in the World Series, got off the train, and I got 10-year-olds just giving me the double birds. I was like, well, I guess here we go. So, yeah, I mean, that's a tough place to play anyways. And then when you have that guy who's hitting, literally in the division series the last 2 years, he's hitting almost 500. He's hitting 481 with 5 homers and over 1,500 OPS. Like, I mean, let's let him just be and not make him any more dangerous than he already is.
So what you're saying, Joba, is that if you were on the mound tonight, you would not be buzzing the tower to send a message?
No, I'm going to go ahead and just make him beat me to left field. I'm not going to let him hit a 450-foot homer off me.
Yeah, go the other way. I like it. Joba Chamberlain's with us talking Major League Baseball postseason. But, yeah, Arcia was, I mean, it was caught. He was just doing some mocking, clapping, making fun of the double play. The situation, to your point, was a crazy sequence. And then, it got back to some of the Philly radio folks, and Bryce heard it again, and the double stare to match both home runs. What wins out tonight? Why does Atlanta move on? Why does Philly move on?
I mean, Spencer Strider, you obviously have, the ability of what he can do and how good he was all year. So I think, if you continue to have him be that person, obviously his first start wasn't the greatest. So I think if you just him establish early, I think getting on the board early, I mean, the team that scores the first is 15-5. So when you got Suarez going, for the Phillies, so it's going to be a momentum game because, I mean, literally the Philly fans are going to be in it from before pitch one and after the end of the game. So, Spencer Strider can go out and do the things that he's done all year and, just be that guy. I think they got a chance. I mean, it's crazy. Over 80% of the team that homers the most, wins the series. So that's a huge part of what this series has become and what the postseason has really become if you look at it as a whole.
Well, chicks dig the long ball, Job.
Right, great commercial.
It's as simple as that.
I got kicked out of class for wearing that shirt. Miss Spanish class because she thought it was bad. I go, you obviously don't like baseball.
So did you negotiate your way back in class, or did you not wear the shirt again?
I just turned it inside out.
See, we had a friend, not me, but back when the Chronic album came out 100 years ago, Dr. Dre, you had the leaf, of course, and the whole T-shirt. A buddy of mine had to turn his T-shirt inside out. But yeah, he had to go.
Mine wasn't even bad.
He had to go talk to Mr. Van Horn, principal at Irving, and turn the T-shirt inside out. But Mr. Van Horn was cool about it. So
well, meanwhile, I had a high school social studies teacher. Her favorite album was The Chronic by Dr. Dre. She used to keep the album in her room. I don't think she could display it, but she kept it in her desk.
Did she play it?
I don't think so. I don't think so. There's a
She
line
probably
right
did
there.
when you guys weren't in class.
Oh,
Right,
100%.
yeah.
100%. So it's Joba Chamberlain with us here.
Down Musical Row here. I like it.
Joba Chamberlain's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Joba, I want to get back to baseball here as I want to get your thoughts on the Diamondbacks. They're awaiting their opponent tonight between the Phillies and the Braves. And if you're the Diamondbacks sitting there in the dugout or in the clubhouse tonight watching this game, I'd like to think all the players get together and watch this game together, seeing who they're going to be playing next round, even though it's probably not the case.
Camaraderie, Joba.
But I'd like to think they do. If they are, who do you think the Diamondbacks would be rooting for? Who would they rather play in the next round? Because either way, it's going to be a tough matchup for the Diamondbacks. But who do you think they stand a better chance against?
I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of look at it, and if I'm them, I want the Phillies to win because then they get an extra day off. Mind you, it can line up some pitching matchups a little bit better. But going into Game 5, you're carrying the momentum of a 5-game series. You keep playing, and everybody makes a big deal about just the momentum. But if I'm them, I mean, it's whether team is going to have a great fan base, it's going to be true home field advantage. I think a lot of people didn't expect the Diamondbacks. Everybody just wrote them off. I mean, the 84 team win is, got some guys, but I mean, you look at the, Merrill Kelly and, Zach. I think Zach Gallen's very underrated, even though he started the All-Star game. And, it's just their pitching was phenomenal. And I think that's part of what that series completely was. I mean, Kershaw didn't get out of the first. Bobby Miller didn't get out of the second. Lance Lynn didn't get out of the third. So when you have, I think they had to get 65 of 76 outs total in that series, or some crazy number. I haven't wrote down, but it's when you have to rely on your bullpen that much, and they go in and do the things that they did. And, first time hitting 4 homers in an inning has never been done. Guy hits one foul and next pitch takes it deep again.
That's crazy.
We've all known, too, Lance Lynn is susceptible to homer. He led the league in homers given up at 45. So,
I know. He was on my fantasy team.
Lance Lynn looks like me pitching out there from a beer gut standpoint. Bless his heart.
I mean, he is good or he's bad. Like, there's really no in-between. And we know he's going to give up the homer. But after the first couple of solos, you're like, solo homers aren't going to really kill you. You got a chance with that offense. But I think in that series, too, when you have 2 top 4 MVP candidates that go 1 for 21, and you only hit 1 homer, and they were second in the league in homers behind the Braves. I mean, you have 4 guys with 100 RBIs, and only one of them had an RBI, and that was a J.D. Martinez solo homer. So that's really not going to win you games. I don't care if you're playing in the California Penal League.
Joba Chamberlain's with us. Joba, biggest disappointment this postseason. Is it Baltimore? Is it Tampa? Or is it the Dodgers?
I mean, it's probably just the Dodgers because of the consistency. They're third all-time in consecutive playoff appearances behind the Braves and can't remember who else. But Orioles, no, not necessarily. You were running some guys out there that, Grayson Rodriguez coming back, had a great second half. And just the young guys, getting that experience, they're not too far off. Their talent's unbelievable. Just obviously ran into some runs and not great starting pitching. The Rays, the Rays are the Rays. They're going to be there. Kevin Cash is phenomenal. And it's just, I just think from what expectations-wise, you look at, the Orioles coming in, everybody's like, no, and then 101 wins later, and you got what it is. And the first time being swept in 91 series. And so, they have the ability. They understand. I think the last time they were swept was the week before Adley Rutschman came up. So I don't think those two, and the Rays are always the Rays because everybody's going to correlate it with the fact that, their payroll isn't very good. And it's not going to be very good. I mean, they're going to have to pay Tyler Glasnow $25 million next year, but I think that's the most they've paid anybody if I go back and look. But just the Dodgers and listening to the interviews last night and just seeing the frustration on like Freddie's face and Mookie just kind of like, yeah, we just didn't do it. But it's also hard when you got to rely on your whole bullpen when 3 of your starters don't get out of the third inning and a future first ballot Hall of Famer doesn't get out of the first inning.
He just struggles so often. Joba Chamberlain's with us. Joba, a couple minutes here, and what is it in your mind here? Is it a situation where we're going to see a World Series champ that wins it because they got hot, or do you think ultimately the best wins? And that's where I'm going here. Baseball is really fun in that aspect where someone can get hot. You see it in the NHL as well, where an 8 seed can go win the cup, but they weren't necessarily at that level all year.
I think it's so hard to distinguish between those two because we've seen both play out in so many series. And then it's, you sweep and then you sweep again and then you have 8 days off and it just momentum doesn't stop. And, you can never obviously regulate or follow everything that you would do during a game day when you're just trying to get your work in and build that. So I think to that is, I think the best team wins, but it wouldn't surprise me if the D-backs get there.
Sure.
It's going to be if they hold up. And, I think Longo's a huge part of that team for being around so long and some of the great plays he's made. And, it's funny because nobody wants to talk about the Astros because this is the 7th year in a row they've got there. So everybody's just like, eh. So, but yeah, I think the best team will get there, but will they win? That's to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Joba, last thought here, about 60 seconds. Do you believe in the power of Creed for the Texas Rangers? Man,
I actually listened to it the other day. I'm not going to lie. I hadn't heard it in forever, and that popped up, and that was like crazy. And I was like, there's no way they're being for real. And it continued to get legs and legs and legs. And I was like, man, this brings back memories. It's one of those songs, those few songs that they had. You're like, I remember where I was when I heard this song one time.
Reminds me of being in my dad's truck going around checking job sites when I was a kid.
I like it.
Hire My Sacrifice with Arms Wide Open. So many bangers from Creed.
Man, you just got to get that front row seat, don't you? Get them to do a show out at Pinewood.
I missed Nickelback a couple weeks ago.
I know.
If Creed's in town, I'm not missing them.
Listen,
I heard Nickelback was great.
I did too. I'm bummed I missed it. I was trying to get down in the pit, but
I didn't get there. Joba Chamberlain, Triple Play is the podcast. Hurrdat Sports, that's dropping this weekend. Joba Chamberlain, God love you, buddy. Thanks for jumping on and talking some ball with us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.
All right, there he is, Joba Chamberlain. We'll head to Vegas and get some input. Danny Burke, Burke's Best Bets. That's on the way. Hail Varsity continues.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Good stuff from Joba Chamberlain. Wonderful overview of the MLB postseason. Get the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play with Hail Varsity Radio, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Gary Barnett talks some college football with us to get hour 2 going. Brandon Vogel of Counter Read joined us in hour 1. Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. We say hi to Danny Burke. And at Danny Burke 5 is where you find him on Twitter. Danny, tell everybody about your website. And I see on Twitter at Danny Burke 5, brother, doing all sorts of insight with games, picks, insight, and insider thoughts. And, dude, you got a whole smorgasbord to pick. You got baseball postseason. You've got Thursday night football with Denver and Kansas City, plus the NFL weekend and some college football. Where are you focused right now?
Yeah, so the website, burkspeed.com, like you said, we're kind of going all over the place. I mean, October, traditionally known as the best sports month, and especially when it comes to betting, because you get all the 4 major sports to choose from. Still waiting on basketball, but honestly, it's kind of one of those that I'm going to wait a little bit to delve into regardless. But, yeah, hockey back in the mix. Hockey is one of my favorite sports to bet on, so even though I've just been getting absolutely pummeled with these brutal beats with the first 2 bets I had in hockey, I'm still going back to the board with it tonight. I took the Stars to win in regulation at about minus $1.27. So, of course, this means they win throughout the first 3 periods. It's the first game, which could be a little fluky. So that's why I'm taking a little bit more security as opposed to going with the puck line, which you would traditionally do with a team that's a bigger favorite. So that's what I did with the Stars tonight against the Blues. Big goalie advantage with Ottinger in favor of Dallas as opposed to Bennington and the Blues, and the Stars' offense is just prolific, and St. Louis had a bottom-tier defense last year, and frankly, they didn't do much to change that heading into this season. So
That's what I rolled with hockey tonight, guys. And then, man, I mean, this one, I don't know if it's a little bit more of just kind of my heart, but also just based on the price and so many other factors for the postseason game tonight, I had to go with the Phillies. I mean, that price got up to like plus 135, and I think I stabbed at it at plus 132. I get the thought should be that the best team in baseball should bounce back tonight. And I love Spencer Strider, man. As a guy who reps the mustache and Spencer Strider, he's been a fan favorite of mine, but he kind of tends to shallow himself in the limelight, right? I mean, he really doesn't show you what he's capable of in a lot of other outings that we see. And look, in the regular season, he has been phenomenal against the Philadelphia Phillies. In the postseason, in a couple matchups, the last start, not bad. Another one the year prior, not so good. But Suarez is taking a bump for the Phillies. Not the best numbers, but what Philadelphia is going to do, guys, is like they did in the first game, put him about 3 innings in the game, let him see the order one time through. Hopefully he can do his job like he's done numerous times against the Braves, and then let the bullpen take care of the rest. And throughout the postseason thus far, Philadelphia's bullpen has only allowed, I think, 3 earned runs, and they have been tremendous, which is a little bit of a shocker. Not the best bullpen heading into the playoffs, but they're stepping up when they need to. And I know that last game was kind of the Arcia comment game, but I think a lot of that fire will still kind of carry over. And more importantly, I mean, this home field advantage at Citizen Bank Park, I mean, that is just wild there. I think they're really going to let Strider hear it. And long story short, again, I think this is somewhat of a coin flip in this spot, so that's why I'm looking at this price of plus 130 or above and going, how are you not taking a stab at that as opposed to laying minus 150 in a spot where I already feel a little bit shaky with some of their guys, and just because this is really tough for them with their backs against the wall. So, yeah, those are the 2 plays I got tonight, and those are a couple of the other sports aside from football I've been focusing in on.
Danny Burke is with us here, Burke's Best Bets. And Danny, I'm seeing the line for Bryce Harper home runs tonight at 0.5. Should I take the over? Should I expect that disrespect card to be pulled yet again by Bryce Harper and expect another big game?
What's the price you see if you have that available? What are they dishing out to you, Elijah?
It looks like plus 400 on the over.
Okay. I thought they'd kind of screw you and put it a little bit lower. Personally, I'm not someone who chases those as much, but hey, if you're just kind of, looking for a little bit of a fun bet to have, big-time players make big-time plays in the biggest stages. So we did that yesterday. He had a pair of them, so that makes it think it'll be really difficult for him to do it one more time. But I'm not going to talk anybody out of banking on Harper to go yard again.
And Danny, I asked you that question because I was trying to avoid the inevitable Thursday night football discussion with my Denver Broncos tonight. 10.5 is the line. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole because weirdness happens on Thursday night football. It's either going to be a blowout or a Broncos win. I don't know what it's going to be, but weirdness will ensue tonight. What's your take on Thursday night football?
Yeah, I kind of think you put it perfectly, right? Like the Broncos are going to be in it to the very end, or they just get embarrassed once again.
Yeah.
And much like I was embarrassed last week backing your team for the second time this year. First was against the Commanders, and then the second time was last. Look, I get what I deserve. I knew that going into it. It doesn't make it any less painful. So I'm officially done with your Broncos until otherwise. But believe it or not, I've actually seen some respected bettors backing Denver in this spot. And I think kind of like you said, though, like Thursday nights are always a little wonky. The wind is going to play a factor in this game, too, so that could limit the offense to Kansas City enough to where, covering 10 to 11 points is somewhat feasible for Denver. But the way I would have looked at this, and the number moved a little bit, so that's why I didn't end up playing it, I would have went with Patrick Mahomes under 35.5 pass attempts, because if you think that the Chiefs do err more on the side of blowing out Denver, well, at some point they're going to stop throwing the ball. They're not going to want to put the strain on Mahomes when they don't need to. That's what you've seen in a couple of the spots where he hasn't had to throw it in closer games. The Bears being one of them. I don't think it's going to be like that, but somewhere in that region. And just because of the wind, makes it more difficult throwing. Kelsey's maybe banged up. All right, they can't do the traditional offense they want to. So knowing how bad Denver's defense is, I don't think they'll fret if they have to rely on the run more. Chaco's been a stud, so I think they'll be comfortable doing that. And that would have been the one prop I would have circled out. It's scary to bet an under with Mahomes first and foremost. But secondly, I think the number ended up moving down at a lot of spots at 34.5. So I stayed away there, guys, but that would have been the one angle I would have pursued.
Feels like every single starting running back the Broncos have run into this year has had their best game of the year against the Broncos. So I'd look at the Pacheco over on rushing yards just maybe. I'm no expert here, but I've watched the Broncos enough to know.
Danny Burke with us, burksbeat.com at Danny Burke 5 as we're talking gambling and games. Danny, is there another NFL game you're looking at? Seattle-Cincy, that's a tight line. You've got Detroit at Tampa, also a field goal, but no hook there. Anything that's piquing your interest?
Yeah, so I made a play, and I'll have a write-up about this tomorrow, but I made a play on the Colts against the Jaguars. So this is the second time these division opponents are facing off against each other. And don't forget, Jacksonville just played back-to-back games overseas. And so that's tough coming home in the first place, you would imagine. Then secondly, going up against a division opponent. And then thirdly, going up against a division opponent for the second time in a span of about a month. Now, James Steicher's really done a tremendous job with this offense. The issue, no Anthony Richardson, so he may not be able to conduct the offense he wants to. But I am still a fairly big supporter of Gardner Minshew. I don't think he's electric. I don't think he makes him better, but I don't necessarily think he makes him worse. He's a pretty consistent and precise quarterback, and we've seen that on display already this year. Now, I'm as big of a Trevor Lawrence fan as anybody because I got a couple MVP tickets on him, and I'd love for them to win because of that, sure. But if we're looking at this just in this spot solely, I would have made this game at 3, and I ended up snagging the number at about 4 in the hook. So I like the Colts in that spot, would play it till about 4. I wouldn't really risk going with a 3.5 because the 4 has been available all week. And then speaking of 4, guys, I haven't done anything here, but...
Danny, hang on. I got a hard break. We'll get you on the other side. Hang tight.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, a Thursday podcast is available for you. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Hail Varsity Radio. Subscribe, follow. Also, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Can watch the show there. Big thanks to Joba Chamberlain, Coach Gary Barnett, Brandon Vogel, and Danny Burke with us here at Danny Burke 5, burksbeat.com. Danny, I cut you off like an a-hole. I'm sorry about that. I need you to continue on with this suggestion here between Jayville and Indy. You were talking minus 4.5. The number right now seems a little bit low.
No, yeah, you're good. So with the Indian-Jacksonville game, took the points with the Colts, the one that I was getting into, and that's my bad, Schmidt.
You're good.
And I should know these breaks still by now. I still have them ingrained in my memory, so that's on me. But Baltimore, I am liking this spot with them, even though they have looked very, very rocky. Look, Tannehill's been awful. Lamar in a lot of analytical departments, not that much better than Tannehill, but we know he is. And he's been getting shafted like he always does because of the lack of weapons. But I think his guys will figure it out, especially against one of the league's worst pass defenses. So Baltimore also, overall, like the second-best defense in the NFL. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they have been great in terms of the defensive side of the ball. So I'm going to wait to see where this line moves. Maybe we get to 3.5, but I'm definitely itching to make a bet with Baltimore. And then finally, guys, I'll leave you with this. Monday night, even though much like the Broncos, they typically cause me pain, I think I might have to take the plus money here with the Chargers. I love me some Justin Herbert. I don't think Dak Prescott is really that good of a quarterback at this point against solid teams. Now, the Chargers defensively like to shoot themselves in the foot, but maybe Chargers can do enough offensively because Dallas, they got shut up against 49ers. I know their defense is great, but against good competition, they've faltered. So I think the Chargers can move the ball. It's just a matter of, again, can they get out of their own way? So I may use the Chargers. If you want more security, tease them up because they're in a good spot from plus 2.5 up to plus 8.5.
Danny, last thought here. I don't have the line in front of me, but Nebraska versus the bye. Who are you taking?
I got to go with Nebraska, right? And I say I'm going with the Huskers because you got to think, or at least you got to hope, they can't fumble on their bye week. So that's why I'm going with Nebraska this weekend, guys.
Danny Burke, burksbeat.com. Give that a check. And follow Danny on Twitter at DannyBurke5. Pride of Chicago, thanks for jumping in with us today. Good to chat, bud.
Yeah, you got it, fellas. Thank you. As always, enjoy your weekend.
All right, there he is, Danny Burke. Got to love hearing his thoughts, some good NFL thoughts. If I had $1,000 to burn, I think 10.5 is too much. I don't like how Kansas City has been playing. I don't disagree with how bad your Donkey D has been.
I don't like how you said
No,
that.
I
didn't like how you said that at all.
Denver defense. I'm sorry.
Oh, what a way to end a show.
I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Sometimes the sophomore humor has to come out.
That's fine. Well played, sir. Well played. My point is this.
First time I've ever heard that.
If my point is if I just had some money I could set on fire, I'd go down to 77 right now and just put a G on Denver to cover.
Well, it's
not saying do it. I'm saying I would if I wouldn't blink. I'd be evicted.
Well, I think I already called that I'm getting Denver 10.5 last night whenever we were talking about this in the show.
Oh,
steak and a beer.
So you're okay, fine. I'll ride with it. I mean, you owe me half a cow anyway. Real quick, buckle up, hands on the wheel, eyes and mind straight ahead. The driver has one job. That's to drive. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Talk to you tomorrow at 4 with Hail Varsity. Thanks for tuning in.